I'm going to start by showing you guys just, hey, these are real deals in Simply. I'm going to walk you through the lists we pull, how and why, kind of some logic behind them. I'll move kind of quick, so don't feel like you have to follow along with the steps I'm doing. I'm more showing you how to do it so you can go back, watch the recording, and pull these lists for yourselves. And then I'll show you the mail pieces we use, and then I'll make sure we've got time for Q&A. Does that sound good? For those of you guys who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Ryan Dossey. I'm a real estate investor. I've done everything from buy and hold, fix and flip, wholesale. I've done some subdivision of land type stuff. I used to say I've done pretty much everything but development. We're actually working on our first 2 new builds right now. So kind of adding kind of that notch to the belt. My kind of area of expertise is in direct to seller off market real estate. So I currently live in San Diego, and I'm doing deals in Baton Rouge, Indianapolis. I've also done some in Pennsylvania. I've got some going in Naples and Cape Coral, Florida, New Cumberland, Pennsylvania, and occasionally kind of St. Louis. So I think a lot of people kind of build the business so that they can travel, right? Like jet set. Mine's been a little bit different. My wife's a Navy psychologist, so I've kind of traveled for her. So, I was living in Pensacola doing deals in Indianapolis. Folks have often asked me, how have you picked your markets? I haven't, she has. So we went to Indianapolis for her grad school. I went full-time in real estate when we moved to Indianapolis. So 2016, I did 6 deals, barely fed myself. 2017, I did 74. So dramatic change, went from it really being a side hustle and grind to having a lot of fun. We bought and sold a whole bunch of rentals there. I still do deals there now with my business partner, Noah. And then outside of that, I own Ballpoint Marketing, Call Porter, which is an inbound answering service for real estate investors and realtors. And CCF is our kind of consulting company. So, anytime I'm listening to somebody chat, what they personally did, okay, cool, right? Maybe they're special. So I like to also preface that with kind of what we've helped other folks accomplish. So just our clients in CCF, we've helped net right at $72 million in profit. That's not total revenue or assets under management or any of those BS numbers. That's literally wholesale fees, profit on flips, and equity in new holds. So what I'm going to walk you guys through today, I believe in being super actionable, tactical, right? You guys don't want to hear my story of oh, I was working these late nights and now I don't have to. You want to know how to stop working the late nights yourself. So that's what I'm going to give you. I'm going to walk you through what I do when I go into a new market. The example I'm going to use, I'm going to screen share literally inside Simply, inside PropStream. I'm going to show you the direct mail pieces we use. In Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we turned, I texted it to Sherrod. It was $23,000 into $198,000 in net profit. We still have a couple others pending off of that 23K. So roughly a 10x return on marketing. Show of hands. I don't know about your guys' stock or crypto portfolios. Mine are not doing that. Okay. I'll often have people ask me hey, will you fund this deal for me? I'll pay you 8%. And I'm like, dude, $250,000 tied up for a year. That just doesn't do it for me. If I go drop that $250,000 in marketing, that's a lot more fun. So I'm going to start by showing you guys just, hey, these are real deals in Simply. I'm going to walk you through the lists we pull, how and why, kind of some logic behind them. I'll move kind of quick, so don't feel like you have to follow along with the steps I'm doing. I'm more showing you how to do it so you can go back, watch the recording, and pull these lists for yourselves. And then I'll show you the mail pieces we use, and then I'll make sure we've got time for Q&A. Does that sound good?
Yeah. So, and Brian, just so that, how old are you?
Oh yeah. I just turned, I was going to say 29. Damn it. I just turned 30.
Yeah. So he hasn't done much for his life, basically. Yeah.
It's funny because I feel that way, but I also know that's ridiculous. But yeah, no, I don't know. Way I look at it, guys, I'm not special. Literally, I bootstrapped this business. I was American Express's bitch for like 2 years. They're like, you swiped it, you're going to unswipe it. Cool. That's fun. Didn't come from money. I don't have the like, oh, there I was in prison deciding to turn my life around. But like, I didn't graduate high school. I had a full-time job at 17, was very much like if I want to eat, well, I got to figure out how to feed myself. Right. So let me screen share and hop into this, and then we'll kind of move through. If you guys have any questions while I'm going, I run Zoom calls all the time. So feel free to just like punch them in, and I'll either answer them at the end or kind of as we go. So instead of being like, oh, I've done all of these deals, I figure like, there you go. Like, go look up the addresses, decide for yourself if I'm trustworthy or not. So in this particular partnership, we've done 26 deals. You can see in September, we had 3 that sold. We have a whole bunch of others under contract. Typically, like in CCF, I would show you all of my active and pending stuff too, but like, I don't know all y'all, and you guys didn't sign NDAs with me, so I'm not going to show you that. These are all sold, so you can't do anything painful to me with that info. You can see in August, 1, 2, 3, 4, September, 3, right? So kind of averaging in this partnership right now, like about a deal a week is kind of the current goal. So now I'm going to walk you guys through, like, if I'm going into a brand new market. So I just went into Naples and Cape Coral market. Buddy of mine that was a business partner with me up in Pennsylvania moved down to Florida because, who doesn't want to live in Naples, and was like, what do we do? So I'm literally going to give you guys that exact playbook. So we're going to go in here into PropStream, which like honestly is kind of my preferred data provider. I know there's others, but they're who I use for most stuff. Their interface is just super easy. For the sake of this example, I'm just going to do San Diego because it's where I'm sitting. So we're going to start by figuring out like where it is that you actually want to invest. So you throw your own market in there. Property characteristics. So my opinion on PropStream, they have great data on single family, duplexes, triplexes, and quads. I don't trust them on anything bigger than that though. So that's kind of typical properties that I'm looking for. Under equity, I always do a 35 to 100% filter. In my experience, that 35% minimum means they can like just barely afford to sell to me, where I can pay off their mortgage, give them a little bit of spending money. So that's kind of the minimum I do there. I don't really play with this much. Like some people will be like, well, I want a smaller list. I'll go like 50% equity. I think that's a mistake because in my experience, the people who sell to me can either barely afford to sell to me or they own the place free and clear. So I do 35 to 100% there. Pro tip that I'm going to recommend for you guys, I do recommend using their estimated value range. When I was just starting out in Indianapolis, I mailed a wealthy part of the town and didn't have this on there. So I was getting calls from people that were like, you'll pay cash? Oh yeah, I was listed for like $2.4 million. Well, $2.4 million in the Midwest back in 2016, that is a castle. Like there's nothing back then. My only exit strategy is wholesaling. Like there's no way I'm going to monetize that deal. So, same thing here in San Diego. Like there's properties that are 40, 50 million bucks. So I'm going to say for the sake of this example, I'm looking for stuff kind of at $1.5 million or below. One kind of, you didn't ask, but I'll give it to you guys takeaway. So I've not yet, knock on wood, lost money on a deal due to the market. And the reason I think that is, we saw interest rates were super low and we were like, hey, at some point, like musical chairs, right? Like the music stops. What's going to happen? Rates are going to go back up. So tail end of last year, we started only marketing to properties that were at the median home value or below. So, in like Indianapolis, for instance, I think the average home price is like $250,000. The most expensive deals I'm doing there are like maybe 300. Most of them are below that, right? Thought process being if somebody wants to be a homeowner, they're not going to go live in the 1-1 in the worst part of town that like they got to worry about getting shot. they're going to go to the nicest 3-2 2-car garage that they can afford. And, that's served us really, really well. So that being said, I'm not in super luxury stuff. If you're not in San Diego, 1.5 million is not super luxury stuff, unfortunately. So, I can see on this list right here, there's a crap load of places, 158,659. I'm not doing that big of a direct mail campaign. So what I am doing, this is kind of my base criteria. So I've got 1 through 4 units, 1.5 million or less, 35 to 100% equity. So what I'm going to teach you guys now is what we call like our lazy investor approach. Show of hands, if we're honest, how many of you guys are a bit lazy in the business? Let me quantify that. You cold calling every return to sender? Are you using your list stacking religiously? Are you removing your opt-ins and opt-outs? Probably not, right? There's a lot of this stuff that like we know we should be doing, but we're not. For instance, if Sherrod went and pulled up your tasks right now, do you have any past due? Probably.
Yeah, let's not go there.
If we went and looked at drip sequences, do you have them running? Did you get your 10 DLC set up, or have you just been pretending it's not a problem, right? So that being said, the lazy investor approach is designed to like, you go through what I'm walking you guys through right now once, and then you're kind of good for like 6 to 7 months. You don't really have to do anything else. So there's several lists that we're going to pull. Obviously, we're not going to hit, this 158,000 people. We need to cast a smaller net than that. So we're going to do what I call like the easy prop stream niche lists. So first one, and my favorite one, is expired MLS listings. So we're going to go to failed and just click that. We can see there's only 2,700 of them, much better than the 150,000 we started with. Failed MLS listings are one of my absolute favorite lists to hit, because what do people say when we make them an offer? Well, I'll just go list it on the MLS. Like, well, how'd that work for you last time? Right? Like, I know it didn't. So let's have a real conversation here. Like, clearly my number was too low, something like what's going on, right? So that would be the first list that we would pull. Literally all you would do is check this box, click add to list. I would call this Lazy Investor San Diego and click save. And then when I'm done, I can go export the full list. So that's the first one we'd pull, is expired MLS listings. I'm going to click that out now. I'm going to go back to filter, and next one I'm going to do is bankruptcy. So I'm going to do active or dismissed bankruptcies. And again, we can see on those, like San Diego is a huge county, a couple million people. There's only 1,100 of them. So I would check that box, take add to list, and add it back to that list. In my experience with bankruptcies, whether they're successful or get dismissed, typically there's a reason that person ended up in bankruptcy. Often those skill sets or habits or whatever don't change. So we have a lot of folks that have a successful or unsuccessful bankruptcy that then end up reaching out to us, and we buy their house a year or two later. So that's the second list that we would pull. I'll clear that out now. Next one I would do is liens, and I do has active lien. And you kind of want to play with this, right? Like in San Diego, on $1.5 million house, a lien for $1,000 probably doesn't matter, but one for 10 grand does. So I tend to go like 1%, 2% of the property value. So in your market, if the average house is $200K, you'd probably do like $2,000. Here in San Diego, I think the average is like 700,000 or 800,000 for a starter home. So if I do has a lien of 8K or more, again, about 1,800 of them. So same thing. I would take that list, snag it, move it over. If you're tracking math wise, we're up to like 5,000 or 6,000 records. Most of you guys aren't in a market this large, right? So if you're in, St. Louis or Indianapolis or something, it's probably going to be a much smaller list than what we're up to already. So I'd come into here, back into filter, and we're going to cut the lien information. And the next one we're going to do under ownership info is interfamily transfer. So indicates something was potentially inherited or like traded hands within the family. again, like not a huge list, 2,500. So we'd go and add that. So, we're up to, call it 8K roughly in San Diego County. You can go in here and do the like pre-probate. We haven't had much luck with that, so I tend to not recommend that. You could go in and do like pre-foreclosure. I personally don't really love working pre-foreclosure leads, which I know like maybe kind of rare in the real estate space, but in my experience with pre-foreclosures, they tend to bury their head in the sand, pretend it's not going on until it's too late. So I haven't had great luck with those. The next one we're going to do is we're going to go absentee. So owner occupied, no, but we're going to go here into ownership info, owner type, and I'm going to do just individuals and trusts. So no corporations. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cap it at people that only own 3 or fewer properties. Reason being, this is a giant list because San Diego is huge. But reason being that we'd cap it like that. In my experience, the folks that own like 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20, 50 houses, right? They're pretty savvy. They want to sell their house. They're going to throw it on the MLS. Somebody that only owns 1 or 2 though, we've had very, very good luck with those. So those are kind of the initial lists that we would pull and throw all into one. Let me show you guys this list here in a smaller market. So Pensacola is where I used to live. So Pensacola, Florida, we can see absentee with 3 or less is like only 9K, and that's the entire market, right? If we were to take out that 3 or fewer, probably jump quite a bit. So it jumps to 17,000. So almost 2X. So that's kind of a good way that we just kind of filter down those larger lists. So what we're then doing is taking all of those lists, merging them into one, and we're throwing them on a postcard sequence. So at Ballpoint, we have 2 of these. We have the Americana, which I like better because, well, I came up with them and they're newer. And then we have the comic ones, which we rolled out, 2 or 3 years ago. So here's how these work. You take a list. If you throw them on the sequence, you get 20% off. And every month they get a different postcard. So the thought process with these is they flick through different motivations people might have for wanting to sell. So sell as is without doing any repairs. We're local, get an offer in 24 hours, close fast, pick your closing date. Seniors love this one. That was like a I think a 1950s ad that the like trademark expired on that we snagged. Sell without realtor commissions, relocating, right? So it kind of cycles through different motivations. That's one of them. That's the one we've been using.
And did you say how often? What's the frequency of these?
1 a month.
1 a month.
Yep. Right. So when I was showing you guys that 23K we turned into 198 came off of literally the lists I pulled and throwing them just on the Americana sequence. These are the comic ones. These are a little bit older, but folks still really like these just because it's different than any other mail that's going out. One thing we've seen with these is people tend to call off of the card that responds to them. So all of my hoarder houses call me off this one. They're like, I don't want to clean this up, right? Like, so people will kind of wait for the one that speaks to them and then respond to that one in particular. So that's kind of the mail that we're doing. We're then obviously working all of the leads in Resimpli. Call Porter takes all of the inbound calls. And then the other thing we do that's a little bit different from how most folks do it is we are using a carrot site on every single piece of mail. So in my experience,
you're putting that on the postcard, your website address.
Yep. So it gets on the postcards, we print it under the return mail address. So in our experience with sellers, like they want to know what it's going to be like doing business with you before they call. So we recommend building a local community brand that has, a Facebook page, an Instagram page that you actually update, that has good reviews and all of that. So we push everybody to that. What we see from like a KPI split that's kind of interesting, about half of our deals go to the website and call the website tracking phone number, even though they got a piece of mail. So people are clearly going and looking up that website when they get the piece of mail.
You're not concerned about, I've heard from some investors, they would have some people that are angry about getting mail, please go to the website and leave a negative review without even doing business. Have you had any of those?
Yeah, definitely.
Or not really.
Yeah, definitely. So you're couple things. Yes, definitely before I started using list stacking. So in the past, somebody'd be like, take me off the list. And I'd be like, yeah, sure, bud. Like, I'm going to add that to my to-do list. And then I would just never do it. I think list stacking became a thing in like 2020, 2021. So before that, it was just kind of okay, yeah, have a nice day. And then you'd still mail them again. So we used to get more negative reviews from people that would get mail, ask to be taken off the list, and then not get taken off. In my experience, if you do actually take them off, then you get a lot less pushback. We've also had pretty good luck with Google in particular. If somebody leaves you a negative review, but they didn't do business with you, you can dispute that with Google. And more often than not, they've sided with us and removed the review. So, yeah.
Good point. Quick question on the list. Any reason? I noticed that all the lists were great, by the way. Love them. But on the absentee, I noticed you didn't have a filter for last sale date.
Good question. Yeah, I meant to bring that up and didn't. So there's two schools of thought here, right? Somebody just bought the house. Why do they want to sell it? I don't know how closely you guys watch your market, but there has been a ton of properties that were bought 6 months, a year ago, even with low rates, that people are now trying to sell. I don't know if they just felt pressured to buy something and then bought something they decided they don't really want or what. So that's, one thing. Owner occupants, a lot of them, it seems like, are kind of sporadic right now. But the reason I personally don't do it, I've bought more houses from failed flippers and failed landlords than I can count that have owned the property for 6 months or less. So particularly in the Midwest, right? If somebody buys, this story, unfortunately, is way too common, but California investor buys a house from like a turnkey company that sucks all the equity out of it, leases it to somebody that's never going to pay, turns it over to them, person trashes the house, right? They're then calling me and I'm like, I can give you half what you paid for it. And they're like, okay. So in our experience, we buy enough properties that have been owned for 6 months or less that I don't and have not ownership capped in years. The only time I ownership cap, if I'm mailing seniors with equity, just because somebody's old and they bought a house doesn't mean they want to sell it to me. So on my seniors lists, I tend to do like 8 or 10 years plus of ownership, just to make sure I'm getting somebody that I'm looking for, that like grandma nice place that they just haven't updated.
Got it. And then so with I'm going to try this. I mean, we did yellow letters as a last campaign, didn't get anything. So I was looking into ballpoint marketing postcard just to
come to daddy.
Mix it up. I have to do it the right way. So we just send you the list basically. That's all.
Yep.
And then you guys like mail it every month.
Yep. Yeah. So, and they do give you like a Google Drive spreadsheet that you can remove out your return to senders and your respondents. Highly recommend that. That way you're not just, hitting people that have asked to not be hit. On that note too, I personally remove all my Simply responders from any new campaigns. So my thought process is, if I've already got you in my CRM, why am I going to mail you again? Unless I'm using direct mail as a follow-up for somebody that went cold on me.
Right. Which might become more popular with 10 DLC, where you are following more with direct mail and not use, especially with the quarter leads, and not texting them and risking your number getting blocked. So no, I mean, great insight on the tips, man.
We're seeing that. We're seeing that in email, but like my 2024 predictions, I think you're going to see, I think it's going to get easier because like people can't get their texts to go through. Well, it's less people that are selling to people that are texting. So that bodes well, but I think you're going to see an increase in like traditional marketing methods. So Facebook and Google ads and YouTube ads, SEO, TV, radio, and direct mail. I think you're going to see an increase in that, which personally, I'm a fan of, right? Like I want less sophisticated, or I want less unsophisticated operators in my markets. I don't need people out here telling sellers they're going to get retail and stringing them along for 4 months. I'd rather that person just call me and we can be honest with them about what they've actually got. So we think that'll be kind of pretty common. So for those of you guys on this call, I would say doing some research into and starting to understand email marketing is probably going to be pretty key.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what I've been telling on calls. I believe it's going to get easier for experienced investors that are doing marketing the right way. I mean, imagine how easy it was, like for any newbie to start, just go pull a list from PropStream, skip trace, start texting.
Yep.
You can't do that anymore.
I think it'll be real interesting. The folks that have pushed the like make money in real estate with no money, no skills, no time, no effort, no credit thing to sell courses. Like, what are they going to offer now?
It's interesting.
Reaching out to agents, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, like, sure. We do all that stuff already. We've seen some just absolute horror stories the past couple of years of people that don't know what they're doing, telling people things that aren't correct. So I think for those of us that are skilled operators, like it is going to get easier, which bodes well.
Yeah, I've seen some coaches, as the interest rate have gone up, they've had the same coaching program go in and say, well, right now, this is the right time to invest in the coaching or do this strategy. I'm like, then why have you been selling for 10 years? If this is the right time, why weren't you selling something else, or why weren't you teaching something else when it was not the right time? So it'll be interesting. I think next 6 months to a year will be very interesting. We're starting to notice, people starting to get their SMS starting to get blocked because of verbiage about cash, assets, or property. So we've been telling people that only text people that are actively engaging with you. Don't text people that are cold leads. You're trying to warm up, start using direct mail. That's what we've been telling you, just start using more and more of direct mail to warm up the leads. Once they start engaging, then use texting. So,
well, and not the point of this call, but like, I used to cold call. I used to text. And, we stopped doing it years ago. It was like the amount of hoops I'm jumping through to like pretend this is legit. Like if it's legit, why am I not just giving them my real name like right out the gate? Right. But like in our community, we tell people we don't recommend cold calling or texting. And it went from like rumors of people getting threatened or getting sued to like, it's probably weekly now that I'm hearing from somebody who follows me or somebody who's in CCF that like they got a demand letter for 5 to 10 grand for, cold texts or calls. So, if you're on this call, I'd just be careful.
Something interesting on that. I received an email from, I forgot what's the department, like it was an investigator from state of Utah, a subpoena about a phone number that was sending some text. So I jumped on the call, I said, hey, we're just a third-party provider. We just, we don't use these numbers for ourselves. We rent these numbers out. So we give the information of the investor. But then it was interesting that they said they are cracking down on people that are services that are selling lists and providing phone numbers in the state of Utah. I didn't even know that. So they asked us, do you provide lists? I said, we do not. Like
You're just like, no, thank people. God.
Yeah, no, thank God. Yeah. So so that was interesting. We received a subpoena a couple of weeks ago from state of Utah. So yeah. I think it's, but to that point, what you said, it's going to be good for investors that are doing marketing the right way. So I'm excited about that.
Well, and proper expectations, because I'm a big believer in that. Our typical like cost to get a deal is around $3,000 to $5,000. So it depends on the market you're in. Typically the cheaper market or the more rural or like the suburb of a market, the lower that cost. I had one of our guys a couple of years ago go on Bigger Pockets and he got 8 deals on 2,500 pieces of mail. And I was like, wish you wouldn't have told people that, because everybody's like, I want what Drew got. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't do that for you. Like that's, right market, right mail piece, right time, right? But if you're in like a typical market, that's kind of the expectation. If you're somewhere super expensive, like Miami or here in San Diego, I'd tell you your cost is likely going to be closer to $8,000. And the problem is that's an average, right? So if I tell you your cost per deal is $3K, it's not you put out $3K and it's guaranteed there's a deal in there. You might put out 9 and then get 3, right? So it is kind of that rolling average. But we look at it from like the function equations from middle school or high school. If I put in 5K and I spit a deal out the backside, what's that deal getting me? On flips for us, our average is well north of 40 grand. On wholesales, we're right around 20. So if I can put in 3 and spit out 30, I'm going to do that as often as I can. So just kind of proper expectations for folks. Like, I'll have people ask me like, well, what's the minimum marketing amount you recommend? I typically tell people like 2 to 3K a month, because in my experience, that's about a deal every other month. If you start to get less than that, it's just not super consistent. But like I've got guys I work with that they want to do a deal a quarter. And I'm like, cool, based on your market, you need to be spending that 3 to 5K a quarter. It just, the deal might come right out the gate, or it might come, further down the line. And, the other caveat I'll throw on that 3 to 5K, that's your typical like Burr deal. 75% minus repairs, minus holding costs, or minus what you want to make if you're wholesaling. If you're doing anything creative, like those costs can come down quite a bit because you can pay quite a bit more. So Jose asks, can we set up the marketing sequences through Resimpli? Not at this time. Sherrod and I are working on kind of some better integrations on that end. But my recommendation would be to take all of the lists out of PropStream, download them, upload them into Resimpli's list stacker, use Resimpli's list stacker to kind of clean up the PropStream data, then export it out of Resimpli after tagging that you've put it on the sequence, and then send that list to Ballpoint is what I would do.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do with my list. Yeah, yep. Exactly what
one like quick recommendation on that. If you guys use pay-per-click firms, and if you do direct mail and you put your phone number on, or you put your website on your mail, you're going to have like half your sellers will go to your website and fill out the form or call that tracking number. If you're using a pay-per-click firm, they'll likely try to take credit for every single lead that comes through your website. So it's super important you use your list stacker to look at where your deals actually came from. So that goes for cold calling, that goes for texting, direct mail, TV, radio, whatever. If you're doing anything to drive traffic to your website and you're using pay-per-click, your pay-per-click guy's gonna be like, oh, I got you 9 deals. And you're gonna be like, well, all of these came off of these other mediums. So that's one reason I'm a big fan of kind of the list stacker. It just kind of helps us know like what actually got us that deal.
So Ryan, when you're mailing these lists, are you using, so you had bankruptcy, you had lien, and a couple of other lists. Mm-hmm. Are you using different phone numbers for each one to know where it's coming from, or using the same phone number and then?
Yep, I'm leaning on the list stacker. Not on the tracking numbers. So
yeah, so you tag them in list stacking as bankruptcy and then go back and see list.
Yep. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Cause so here's the problem, right? We have pay-per-click, we have Facebook ads, we have YouTube, we have SEO. So like when a seller goes on my website, I then retarget them with helpful content. Hey, if you're in Dallas and you're behind on your taxes, here's what's going to happen to you, right? Hey, if you're thinking about renting out, make sure you have these 10 provisions in your lease. If you don't have those, well, I'll send you my lease, right? Well, I use a different tracking number for Facebook. I use a different tracking number on my direct mail. So really the only way for me to really keep it straight is kind of the list stacker, at least with anything that I'm doing outbound prospecting. Inbound prospecting, cool. But yeah, unfortunately, there's not like a perfect tracking system for direct mail. I would say that's on my my goal board to build out something better than what currently exists for. But
perfect. All right.
One other quick pro tip on direct mail. You guys can edit the copy on anything you get, whether you use Ballpoint or not. I would highly recommend throwing call or text us on your mail pieces. In our experience, that gets us actually quite a bit of a higher response rate of people that like they didn't want to call, but they'll flick a text in. So,
Interesting.
yep. So highly recommend doing that as well.
Right. And then once you get your calls in, you have call porter take all those calls. Are they setting up appointments for you guys, or just getting it over to your acquisition person to kind of take it from there?
Yeah. So they'll try to go for appointments. So
Okay.
call porter takes 12 to 15,000 inbound calls a month just for guys like you and I. The split we see on that, about 40% of the leads that come in are take me off the list. So hence it's important to make sure you're actually taking people off the list. Sometimes those take me off the lists are pleasant, like, oh, please remove me, good sir. Other times they're not. They're like, hey, go burn in hell. So 40% are take me off the list. The other 60% is split. So 30% are, hey, come out, make me an offer, come out next Tuesday. Those are appointments. The other 30% are what we call, I abbreviate it to FU, but that's follow-up, right? So they are like, hey, I've got tenants, I'm traveling, I'm not sure that I want to sell. Like, those are the ones where it's on us to use our drips and use our tasks to make sure we're following up with people.
Got it. Have you noticed anything like change with like direct mail, in terms of like responses? Is there any, time of the year where you should really be doing direct mail, or time of the year that you should not be, like, especially like going into holidays and stuff?
Yeah, good question. My response would be, are there certain months you just don't want to do deals? Right.
Yeah, fair enough.
But like, not tongue in cheek,
Right.
realistically, if you market through Q4, right? October, November, December, you're going to get a lower response rate those months. But what we see is January is explosive for us because of it. So those are the months that people are having the difficult conversations. What are we going to do with mom's house? What do we want to do with this? Do we sell the rental? It's also when people tend to overextend themselves financially, traveling, gifts, and all that, that they're like, maybe we should sell the house that's just vacant or that we haven't quite finished or whatever. So, you know, I personally, like, my marketing doesn't change at all, even literally through December. That being said, I think going into it with the expectation of like, you're going to get more deals in January because of that makes a lot of sense. We've actually got something we're rolling out for Christmas this year that I can't announce yet, but is kind of geared towards that angle of like, send it in December, reap the benefit of it in January.
Hey, Nigel, yeah, if you want to go ahead and unmute, go ahead
Yeah,
and with your question.
All right. How you doing, Sherrod? How you doing, Ryan?
good, man. How about
Pretty
yourself?
good, man.
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. I have a question, man. But I see it can add a lot of value if you guys kind of did it, but I was wondering, could I do it? I was thinking about using you guys postcards. I'll send out a batch of postcards to a targeted list, right? But then I also have a someone that I connected with that does geofencing,
Yep.
advertisement, and OTT. But you have to create the ad. So I was wondering, I know, it could be kind of like plagiarism. I was wondering, if I'm using you guys' services, could I retarget with geofencing with the same type of image that I sent out as far as the postcard? And I just wanted to ask you personally, because you guys have some real unique postcards. Now, if I was to do geofencing marketing and targeting to those addresses, could I actually just have permission to kind of do that? I was just wondering, because you
Yeah,
have
no, man.
digital banners, and
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking. I mean, we've had some competitors I won't name literally just like copy and paste our designs, but they end up looking like the Wish version. Um, Let me do this for you. So I've never shared these outside of my own coaching company, but so I had these animated. So if you go the Americana route, they're real simple, but
Oh, wow.
Let me see if this will play. So just like little subtle movements and stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
So I will, let me think about the best way to do that. So for each of the Americana ones, I did that. And these are set up for like Facebook or like real retargeting. So that would work on Facebook, Instagram, or Google, most likely. Short answer is yes, I'm cool with that. I think these are the front images. They're numbered though, so that wouldn't work for you. But yeah, if you want those like little animations, any of you guys that are on this,
Sure.
just flick me a DM to Instagram and I'll throw all of those in a Dropbox folder and you guys are free to have those.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Is it
Thanks, Ryan.
okay?
That's very generous of you.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Because I have a it's going to be geofencing, so it's not going to be like in mass. It's going to be according to the address that I upload into the platform to target with digital ads. Is it okay if I use the comic ones also? Like, because if I send out a batch to those prospects, could I ask also retarget them with the digital banner of maybe the same postcard that I kind of send out to them? Is that cool?
Yeah, I'm good with that, man. I don't have an issue with that. What platform are you using?
I'm thinking about using Propellant. This guy out of Georgia, he kind of white labels his software also. There's another one called Simplify.
So
Another one called Get Geo Fencing or something like that.
so not the purpose of the call, but there's geofencing and then there's something called IP address targeting. IP address targeting will let you only serve the ads to the people you actually mailed. I don't know of any resellers of that, but I'm a reseller from the actual data provider itself, but I would maybe look into that. You can use my images for the same thing. I'm cool with that. You just might have better results doing the IP address targeting over geofencing.
Okay, great. Okay. All right.
Because it's literally like only the people that are getting your
Now,
mail are seeing your ads, not all their neighbors and all that.
This is
gotcha.
it on Facebook or
Perfect.
YouTube or
So IP address targeting uses Google Display Network. So Google and
okay.
YouTube.
Got it. Okay.
Do you know any companies, Ryan, that I can even you guys service? Like, what's the name of you guys service?
Yeah. So I don't think I can actually tell you who I use because they're like
Okay.
a political tool. I'm technically a reseller, so I can do it for people, but I don't. I would just Google it around. But I mean, here's the other thing, man. I'll be blunt with you. I don't know what your marketing budget is. This is the kind of stuff you add in when you're doing everything else already. Like the average guy I know doing 7 figures a year is spending about $20,000 a month across direct mail, Facebook, Instagram, pay-per-click, all of that. IP address targeting ends up costing you like an extra 20 cents per piece typically. So if you're doing, 10,000 pieces of mail, like you're spending an extra 2 to 3 grand on it. It's not something I'd recommend until you've kind of saturated all the other channels, just personally. Like, by all means, try it if you want to try it. I can just tell you from my personal experience, you're likely to see better results dedicating that marketing budget to a more conventional channel. Unless you're already at scale, in which case, by all means, bro, ball out.
No, thanks, man. I really appreciated that because I was kind of going back and forth with the idea of implement it
Yep.
maybe in
So here's,
smaller batches.
I like it.
Yeah.
It has a use case, but it's very hard to prove the effectiveness of. So it's one of those like you've got to be cool just spending it and not being able to prove that it worked or not, which for most investors, like I tell a lot of people like, hey, you got to expect 3 to 5K a deal. And they're like, what? Everybody else on Instagram said it's not going to cost me any money. And I'm like, well, that's not my experience. IP address targeting is the same, except for I'm like, just light 2 grand on fire and hope it works. Is kind of the like, IP address or geofencing like that got popular from political campaigns. So you're talking just $1 million budget type stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
okay, cool. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. If you want those files though, I'll still give them to you. So just DM me on Instagram if you want them.
Okay, cool.
Gabriel, do I have boots on the ground, partners in each market? Good question. So yes, the last market that I was in where I didn't have any help would have been early on in Indianapolis. I hired acquisitions managers. One of them turned into a business partner when I moved. So what I tend to do is partner with folks that have a track record, but kind of lack the capital to market consistently. So like that's what we've done in Baton Rouge. I partnered with somebody in Pensacola when I was there. Now that I'm in San Diego, I'll probably find somebody to work with here. I don't know. I just kind of like having deals going on in my own backyard. I've done the whole just straight virtual thing. It's kind of an uphill battle, if I'm being blunt. Like it's harder, right? It's harder to build rapport. It's harder to get to know them. It's harder to get them on your terms and all that. As far as like, do I work appointments or do I try to lock it up remote? I'm a big fan of in person. Like you're trying to convince someone to sell you the most expensive thing they probably will ever own. That's hard to do over the phone. I used to have just a straight virtual wholesaling company. And that was all inbound SEO leads. SEO leads are the highest quality in my experience. So those people will jump through hoops. They'll talk to you for 40 minutes. They'll walk you through room by room what it needs. In my experience, they still lied to us. So we'd get it under contract. We'd get an inspection done. And we'd be like, you failed to mention the foundation is crumbling, right? So what I typically tell the folks I work with, we all value our time. But I don't feel like you get to be like, oh, that lead's not good enough for me until you have more deals than you know what to do with. In my personal experience, most of my deals sound like unmotivated tire kickers when they first call in. So that initial call is typically like, I got your card in the mail. What do you want? Well, guys, realistically, like let's say a typical response rate on Ballpoint, we see anywhere from like 0.5% to 1.5%, depending on the list. That's like average. That means 99% of people got that and they're like, this ain't for me, and chucked it. That 1% that called, there's a reason, but they're typically not going to come out the gate and be like, hey, Gabe, I'm desperate, bro. Like my wife just left. She caught me using drugs. Like, no, they're not just going to like give you the goods right out the gate. Typically they're like, hey, what do you want? And then you get to know them and they're like, I made some really bad decisions. Or they're just like, hey, I'm downsizing for work, whatever. So all of that to say, like, in my experience, if you only go on the appointments that sound motivated, or if you only, if you try to do it remote, like you're probably going to miss 90% of your deals, has been my experience. So on your appointments, a good way to tell if you're doing a good job or not, your closing percentage should be between 10 to 30%. So if you go meet with 10 people, if you suck, you should get 1 deal out of it. If you're good, you should get at least 3. Once you start to be going on a lot of appointments, that's when you can kind of start to scale back. Caveat to that being, if somebody calls me and they're like, Zestimate's 200 and they're like, I want 4 million. I'm like, sitting on a gold mine. Like, what am I missing? Right? Like, if it's a 200K house and they're asking 400, I'm like, I'm a little confused. Looks like the property in perfect shape is worth maybe 200. Do you have more than one home on the parcel, or what am I missing? Oh, well, I was just like hoping you were going to overpay for some secret. No, we're not. Like typically how I explain it to people, I'll pay fair market value based on the condition. In my opinion, where I make my money is on the fact that I get good deals on construction. It's not just I'm going and lowballing people. It's you go Angie's List a bathroom and they're like, oh, that's 50K. I ain't paying 50K for a bathroom. Right. But some retail company is going to go tell some homeowner a rental grade bathroom will cost them every bit of that. So sweet. You guys, any other questions for me?
No, Ryan, I think that's it. Thank you so much for that. And we'll send the link out to everyone in the email. I'm going to have my lead manager just basically watch the recording and do the exact same things and send you guys over the list.
Yeah. And if any of you guys go through and want to do like the sequences stuff, you can hop on a call with us for free. If you just go to Ballpoint, it's like the contact page, you can book a call with either Dan or Jeremy, and they can help you like troubleshoot. Because typically what I see happens is either you don't have enough leads or you have too many. So they can kind of walk you through that. But, if you guys go into it with that expectation, if it's going to probably cost you $3K to get a deal in the Midwest, $5K in your markets like, Nashville or, Orlando kind of markets, I think you'll do well going into it with that expectation. If you guys have any other questions, like we get off and you forgot something or you were too shy to ask a question in front of 45 people, just flick me a DM on Instagram. I'm super responsive there.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, man.
Yep. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.